Box and whisker plots. Here are the two state standards that go with that, 07065.2 and 07065.3. You can pause the video and read these if you would like. Our objective is to create and interpret box and whisker plots. We're going to use our measures of variation, the lower extreme, lower quartile, median, upper quartile, and upper extreme. This is also known as the 5-number summary. Here are some steps for making a box and whisker plot. You're going to find the measures of variation, check for outliers, plot the measures of variation and outliers on the number line, and then connect the box and whiskers. This is what a box and whisker plot looks like. Notice there are 5 points from our 5-number summary, and these are plotted above a number line. We have the lower extreme, the median, the upper extreme, lower quartile, and upper quartile. And sometimes we'll have an outlier as well. Not always. Okay, here are the steps for finding outliers and the limits for outliers. We're going to multiply the interquartile range, which is the upper quartile minus the lower quartile, by 1.5. To find the lower limit, we're going to subtract the product from the lower quartile. To find the upper limit, we'll add the product to the upper quartile. Any number outside the limits is an outlier. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Here we have a set of data that's already in numerical order, which is the first step to finding our 5-number summary. Here's our median, and the upper and lower quartiles are the medians of the upper half of the data and the lower half of the data. So right now we have our median, our lower quartile, and our upper quartile. To find the interquartile range, I take the upper quartile minus the lower quartile. And then I'm going to multiply this number, the interquartile range, by 1.5, and that gives me 6. I'm going to find my limits. 17, the lower quartile, minus 6 is 11. And I'm going to take my upper quartile plus 6, which is 27. So now I have my lower and upper limits. When I'm looking at the data set, I do not have any outliers for this particular data set. Okay, now I'm ready to make my box and whisker plot. Here I've numbered my number line. Notice I have put a point at my lower extreme, my upper extreme, lower quartile, median, and upper quartile. The last step is to connect. I'm going to draw a box connecting the lower quartile and the upper quartile. I'm going to put a line in the center with the median and draw my whiskers on either end of the box. Okay, here's another example. These are in order. I'd like for you to pause the video at this point and see how far you can get on your own. And then you can unpause the video and we'll compare our work. The first step is to find the median. In this case, there are actually two numbers in the middle, so I'm going to have to find the average of those two numbers, and that average would be 38. When this happens, I'm actually going to include these numbers when I go to find the upper and lower quartiles. So my lower quartile is going to be 28. My upper quartile, again, I'm finding the average of 42 and 44, which would be 43. So at this point, I have a median, a lower quartile, and an upper quartile. My next step is going to be to find my limits so I can test and see if I have any outliers. My interquartile range, I take the upper quartile minus the lower quartile, which is 15, multiply that by 1.5. Now I'm going to take my lower quartile, subtracting my product, and I get 5.5. That'll be my lower limit. I do have an outlier. And I'm going to take my upper quartile and add my product, 65.5. So there's not an outlier on the upper end. Here are my limits, and 3 is an outlier. So here I have my 5-number summary. And in this case, since I did have an outlier, the 24 is going to default and go here. Okay, we have some special cases when the median equals the lower quartile. Your box and whisker plot might look like this. It appears as if there is not a median, but this is because the median and the lower quartile are in the same position. Here's another special case. The lower extreme equals the lower quartile. When this happens, I'm only going to have one whisker. And it could happen on the other end too if the upper quartile and the upper extreme were the same. Here's a special case where our upper extreme and our upper quartile are the same. But in this case, there was an outlier as well. We're going to work through some more examples now. Here we have a set of data. In this case, the data is not in numerical order, so that will be the first step. When I am putting numbers in numerical order, I like to make sure that I mark out the numbers as I put them in order so that I don't leave anything out. Okay, now that we've got that step out of the way, we're going to find the median. In this case, it's 21. Then I'm going to find my upper and lower quartiles. Next, I'm going to find my interquartile range, which would be 23 minus 17, which is 6. I'm going to take 6 times 1.5 to get the product that I will use to find my limits. And that is 9. So I'm going for the lower limit, find the lower quartile, subtract 9. which is 8. And I can tell I don't have an outlier on the lower end. On the upper end, I'm going to take my upper quartile and add the product. I get 32. So I don't have any limits on the upper end either. I'm going to clear this off and make my box and whisker plot. Since I don't have any outliers, I'm going to go ahead and identify my lower extreme and upper extreme. And I need to go from 15 to 24. And number my number line. Okay, so for my 5-number summary, I've got 15, 17, 21, 23, and 24. I'm going to draw my whiskers. Not very good at the straight lines. And then for the median, I'm going to draw this right here. And I have my box and whisker plot completed. Here's another example. Let's see what we can do with this one. Why don't you pause the video and see how far you can get and then turn it back on. Okay, first step, put the numbers in numerical order. Again, I like to cross these out as I'm doing it to make sure I don't leave anything out. And the first step is to find the median. After I've found the median, I'm going to find my lower quartile. I have to average these two. And my upper quartile, average these two. Now I'm going to find my interquartile range by taking the upper quartile minus the lower quartile. Get my product by taking the interquartile range times 1.5. Now to find the lower limit, I'm going to take my lower quartile, subtract the product I've found. So 85 minus 17.25 is 67.75. And I do have an outlier here. The 61 is an outlier. I'm going to make a note of that over here. To find the upper limit, I'm going to take my upper quartile and add the product I've found. So 96.5 plus 17 25 is 113 75 hundredths. And I do not have an upper outlier. I'm going to clear off some of the page at this point. On your paper, it would be best to do this separately. Okay. Now, I'm going to number my number line, and I'm going to go ahead and start putting my points here. This would be my lower extreme and upper extreme in this case. So I have an outlier at 61. the lower extreme at 84, lower quartile at 85, median at 91, upper quartile at 96.5, upper extreme at 98. The outlier will not be connected. It will be separate from the box and whisker plot. And this is the final product.